there! In this video I'm going to show you how to create your own mockups in Photoshop. The first step you need to do is to have a base photo layer for your mockups. So you can take your own photos. For example, you can take a photo of your phone, of a packaging, and anything that has a clean surface where you will be able to apply your design and build it in with a smart object layer. But I will go with stock photos, and I will use a free, commercially free stock photo from Unsplash. As you can see, I searched for iPads, and there's a few things that you have to keep in mind when choosing a base photo for your mockups. The first thing is that the easiest way to create a mockup if you choose a flat lay. And if you choose a flat lay, look for objects that doesn't have any disturbing elements overlaying on them. So this is a good example. Here's the iPad. You have the rectangle part where you will insert your smart object layer, and none of the leaf, none of the coffee mug lays over the screen. So you will have an easy job turning it into a mockup. Here's another example where, as you can see, the man's finger is overlaying the screen. This time it will be a bit harder to turn it into a mockup because you will have to mask out the finger. As you can see, the corners are also curved, so you will have to mask it out to make it curved instead of just a plain rectangle. On this one, you will have to work even more because, as you can see, the whole screen is distorted perspectively. It's not a flat lay. You have to mask out the finger and the hand, and you also have to take into account the reflection, the light, and everything. So you have to add modification layers on top of your mockup layer that adds the same reflection and warm light. Now I just go with something easy and straightforward, and I will download this iPad photo from Plush Design Studio. I will open it in Photoshop, and the first thing that I will do is to make it a bit brighter. This is a too dark photo, so I duplicate the background image, double click on it to unlock, so there's not any more little lock icons here. Right click, duplicate layer. Then I change the second layer's blending mode to soft light. After this, I go down here to the adjustment layers, which has a little icon with a circle, and I choose curves. And just by dragging and pulling this curve, I can make the photo significantly lighter. And finally, I group these three layers with Command G or Control G and name them base photo. I also check the size of this image. I go to image size, and as you can see, it's quite big. I don't need this big image for my work, so I will make it a bit smaller, 2000 by 2667. And now I will add my screen, which will be a rectangle. But before I do so, I will have to know the proportion of the screen on iPads so that I can create a realistic iPad screen. I go back to my browser and I already googled iPad screen resolution. Here's a good guide that tells you that the display size on iPads are 12.9 inches, which means 1026 by 1366 points. So how do I do that? I go to the rectangle tool, click on it, and then just click on the screen. I type in 1024 for the width and 1366 for the height. Now when I change this size, because as you can see it's too small, when I change it, I will have to scale it up proportionately. I press Command T or Control T to step into transformation mode. And while pressing Shift, I start scaling it up. The other way to do it is to click on this little link, and this will keep the proportionate, the width and the height proportionally will scale up. So I scaled it up to 161%, which is not a problem with this layer that went over 100%, because this is a shape layer and it's vector graphic, so you won't see any blurriness. So after I scaled it approximately to the size that I need, I right click on that layer and click Convert to Smart Object. And this is when I start transforming it again and rotating it, distorting it to fit the screen size on my photo. So I press Command T or Control T again. And first I start rotating it, moving it to the right place, rotating it a little bit again, scaling it down a little bit, and checking that the little link is still clicked on and highlighted. And then bring it up, scaling it up a little bit. And as you can see, the size and the rotation is kind of good, but there are gaps here and a bit overflowing here. So I have to distort the layer. Still in the transformation mode, so I haven't clicked the check mark. Still in the transformation mode, I right click on the shape and click on distort. And then I can go down to the corners and freely distort them here and then here until I reach that corner, the inside corner of the black frame. So let's see, this is the last corner. Let's see if it looks okay here. Yeah, it looks okay here. Maybe overflows a little bit too much in there. Yes, now it's good. It looks parallel with the black frame. And I just click on accept. And now if I double click on the thumbnail of the rectangle and do anything inside here, so for example I grab a brush and just brush on a new layer and save it, when I go back I will see that on my screen. it to screen. Where can you use this? Most often I use iPad, iPhone, laptop and iMac screens to present my workbooks or any new products that I created. Those products that are mainly digital. So if someone downloads them, they won't really print it. They will look at them on their screen. So you can highlight your latest freebie or put a preview of your latest blog post, podcast, anything that you want to advertise that's a digital content. These mockups are perfect for them. Now let's talk about masking a little bit. There's two ways to do this, and I will show you both. So as you can see, on this mockup, the screen is not a rectangle. So it's not enough to just transform it into this iPhone screen. You also have to cut off the curves and this notch part. So how can you do that? The way I did it here is that I draw a shape that was exactly the shape of the screen, and then I clipped the smart object layer to that screen shape. So when you do that, you choose the pen tool and you say that you will create a shape and not a path. So you make a shape. And you just go in, zoom in, and you start drawing. You pull these Bezier curves. And you just go, if you want to modify something, you press Command or Control on Windows, and then you are able to modify the little vectors, and then you continue nicely and neatly. You draw the shape and then you go around the whole screen. So this is how it looks when I could get around, and if I see any parts where some of the screen is still visible, like here, then I just go back and modify those layers. I really don't want to show any of the original screen, so that's why I have to do that. Here too, as you can see, some of the screen is visible. You can add more points by just using the pen tool and click on the path, or you can take away. So here I'm taking away, and here I'm changing the path a little bit. And this is how I made my shape. I have my shape, I name it into mask shape for screen, and then if I have my screen here, which I made exactly the same way as I did on the iPad mockup I showed you before. I just right click on my mockup smart object layer and create clipping mask. This way it will clip it to the mask that I just drawn. This first masking method works really well when everything that your hands do mask out is sharp and clear. So like here, all the edges were sharp. So by just defining the shape and clipping masking the screen to it, we could easily mask out the notch and the corners. But in other cases, like on this photo, although the edge of the screen is sharp, but the hand that overlays it, it's a bit blurry. So we have to use a different method. So I draw the shape for my mask just the same way as in the previous method. So if you go closer and you step on the pen tool, you will see all the little points where I can modify it. But instead of clipping my smart object layer on top of it, like this, like in the previous method, I will use this shape as a clipping mask. I just press Command or Control on Windows and click on the thumbnail of the shape until I see this selection line. Click on the Smart Object layer and come down here and click on the Add Layer Mask icon. So now everything is masked out in the corners and at the hand. And I don't need to see this shape anymore. But as you can see, the hand is still sharp. So what I can do, I click on the mask and choose my brush. I set it to 0% hardness and a relatively small size. And I start to modify the shape of my mask by brushing over it. So if I brush over it with black, I will take away from the mask, and if I brush over it with white, I will add to it. I will have to use a combination of both methods to achieve the best results. So I come here and I see that I will have to take away from my, I will have to add to my mask. So I come here and add a little bit of my mask. I even decrease the brush size. And I just go over on the edges with my brush. As you can see, the sharpness as I go over with this very soft brush disappears. If I find it that this is too soft, too blurry, I can just change from white to black and delete my changes with my brush again. And I can also change the softness of my brush. But I do it very quickly. This is something that it's easier if you have a Wacom tablet or a drawing monitor, but if you don't have it, you can still do it with your mouse. It's just a bit harder to make it with the mouse. So I zoom out to see where I have to soften the edges even more. And as you can see, now the edges of my smart object and my mask are sharp here at the screen and soft here at the hand. And this is how I wanted it. This is the second method of masking out, and it works perfectly if any kind of blurry image, blurry object lays over your smart object layer. Last but not least, if you don't have the time to create mockups, or if you want to check out how I set up the layers in my mockup files, you can get these 3 mockups for free when you subscribe to my free brand builder library. The link is below this video, and you also get access to marketing, design, and branding freebies in the library. And I add new files on a monthly basis. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm looking forward to teach you more Photoshop tricks in the future.